probably stolen. Because
we're joined on the call today by members of our project management team, Jason Morgan from the Common Pool. Jordan is also on the call. Many of you had interactions with Jordan over the course of the submission process in Phase 1. I believe Lynn is also on our call, lead eventer, and also we have from our side of the project management team, the TSM team, Nancy Erbshat and Janet Bennett. Thank you everyone for making time to be here. I certainly understand that it's a very busy time of the year, and with today also being the Monday before Christmas and also at lunchtime, I imagine many folks are here joining us on their lunch. So we want to keep the speaking program relatively brief. We precluded or prefaced at least this webinar with an email on Friday. That is information that came directly from us from the EDA, and much of that information that you did receive on Friday is what we will be revisiting today. The purpose for this webinar and also the one scheduled for next Monday, the 29th, is really just so we can make certain to communicate with the teams who are participating in Phase 2 ahead of the EDA visit on January 6th. We have some time scheduled for Jason and perhaps even some representatives from the EDA to visit Hartford again. Coming in on the 5th, we have some programs that we're scheduling out right now that include some one-on-one time for teams on the 6th and perhaps even some time in the morning on the 7th, time permitting. So with that said, I don't want to take any more time with introductions. We will proceed with the program. And as soon as I can get to the next page, here we are. This is our agenda for today. We will have a very brief purpose and background by Jason Morgan from the TCP, just to reframe our understanding of the SC2 initiative and also put in perspective the unique elements of the SC2 Hartford Challenge. We're going to talk very briefly about the program goals. The EDA has unique goals, separate and distinct, or at least in complementary and separate and distinct from the City of Hartford's purpose for this. We will revisit a little bit of the SC2 rules and the timeline. Those are already on the website, the SC2 website. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about the format and presentations, leaving sufficient time at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. You are muted during the presentation, and so if you do have any questions, please feel free to type those questions to me. It seems that I was muted for a moment. My apologies, folks. I will address all questions that come in. I promise that if there's an answer that we don't have for you, we will research that and follow up with all the teams. I believe that we're recording this webinar, and we will make the link available to teams following the webinar by EOB today. The meeting that we have scheduled for the Monday, the 29th, will be live as well. Okay. So with that, I want to first show to you the goals, straight from the horse's mouth. This is reflective of the email that you received on Friday, as scripted by Shivas Granam, our PRO representative, our Philadelphia regional office from the EDA. I did here pull out some of the core words or the key words as communicated to us by Shivas. You can see things like strengthen communities to assist Hartford with leveraging innovative ideas. I won't read this because I did send it to you, but the fact remains that these are the types of things that you will want to focus on, at the very least, when you start to formulate what your strategy will be. You'll see things like robust regional economy, Hartford's unique competitive advantages, speaking particularly to our entrepreneurial activities, engaged stakeholders, asset-based regional economic development, leveraging local assets and strengths to engage the public and private sectors, sustainability, resilient to economic shifts. Now, the Hartford plan is obviously, the Hartford strategy is somewhat different from the SC2 initiative. And so with that, what I'd like to do is introduce Jason Morgan so he can kind of give us a little bit of the backfill very briefly about how the program developed, and that'll give us also some insight to what it is we're trying to achieve here. Jason, are you available?
Sure, I am. Can you hear me?
I absolutely can. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. So those who have not completely familiarized yourself with the website might want to know that the SC2, the Strong Cities, Strong Communities Challenge, is an initiative that actually came out of the White House Domestic Policy Council. And the purpose of that initiative was really to help cities that did not have comprehensive or effective economic development plans in place to realize new plans and to invite citizens and others into the planning process. And so if you can think of that as an effort really to bring comprehensive economic development planning to cities in need of that service, that's what SC2 was trying to accomplish from the top level. Now, what has happened is that as Hartford, Greensboro, and the city of Las Vegas have all become the first of the 3 cities to host one of these challenges, what we've done is we've kind of evolved slightly. We've pivoted so that each of those cities is allowed to pick a particular focus area or a particular geographic region within their city, and there are other kind of ways in which they're parsing out their goals. For the city of Hartford, Stephen and his team decided to look specifically at entrepreneurship, kind of starting up businesses in Hartford, making Hartford a center for accelerating businesses, launching businesses, and making business kind of the pivot point for what they wanted to achieve through the SC2. So if you try and reconcile both what the Department of Commerce and the White House are trying to achieve out of this against kind of the more specific goals that Hartford wants to achieve, I would recommend that you think of this kind of across two different planes. First of all, given your phase one proposals, you've already kind of planted a seed of what you want to accomplish. For many of you, that's a specific project. And in phase two, we want to see you maybe expand on that project, but to do it in a way that shows more depth of thinking for the specific project. By that, I mean a stronger budget, a stronger project plan, all the things that would showcase your ability to deliver a more feasible type of project-based approach to something. But also on another plane to look at kind of the breadth of your proposition. So while some of you want to focus more specifically on a particular project, a discrete project, you need in phase two to show how that project is emblematic of a larger strategic approach. And your broader understanding of job creation in the city of Hartford, local and regional economic conditions in the city of Hartford, and all the other things that you'll find in the plan template and the EDA guidelines for your phase two submission. So think in terms of breadth and think in terms of depth. And when I say breadth, I really mean how this thing that you're going to propose to Hartford is going to change more than just the addition of one more discrete project, how it's going to change Hartford more fundamentally, and how those fundamentals, in addressing those fundamentals, you can showcase your understanding of local conditions. So, Stephen, if you'd like me to expand on any more of that, I'm happy to, but I think you're going to cover a lot more later in the presentation.
Yeah, that's great, Jason. Thank you very much. And what I want to stress to folks is that you all do have unique ideas relative to how to make Hartford economically sustainable or viable, using particularly on entrepreneurship. We have things like One City, One Plan. We have things like the CEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. As Jason said, this program originally was designed for communities that didn't have those things. And one of the reasons why we were funded was partly because our CEDS, our One City, One Plan, and our library of other plans that have been sitting on shelves for myriad years, the fact is that it didn't actually speak to entrepreneurship. Now, there's lots of genesis stories and why folks have gotten involved and really why we got involved in this competition, but the fact is that not one of our plans talks in any level of detail about what is entrepreneurship. And so when we received these funds, we really did try to democratize this process at the front end rather than the tail end. We wanted to ask the entrepreneurial community, what are the entrepreneurial endeavors that we should be pursuing? Now, phase one was ultimately about a discrete project, as Jason talked about. How does your discrete project, though, translate to some of those larger impact statements? And that's what we're looking for in phase two, straight from the horse's mouth, as I call it. This is straight from the EDA's email that I sent on Friday. So your phase one was your actionable item. Your phase two is the impact that your actionable item will have on Hartford and the region's economy. So some things that you might want to ask yourself: how does my plan impact the city's region's economy? What problems does my plan solve? Does my plan create jobs? Now, many folks, when they submitted their phase ones, they had an idea that they were very passionate about, but they may not have actually spoken to what types of problems exist that they could solve, or that their idea is solving. Think about your plan. Think about your solutions. But also think about what types of problems you hadn't really considered that your plan might also be able to solve. Does your plan create jobs? Maybe you hadn't considered what other industries could be impacted by what your idea was. But does it also remediate blight? Does it activate underutilized areas? Really important is going to be demonstrating to the judges how you measure your success. You're going to have to demonstrate to us, and also the city, how do we know that your plan is not only feasible and sustainable, but how do we know at the end of certain milestones that it's working? You'll have to describe that for us. You might also want to take into consideration what are the assets in the region that help your plan. Who are the partners inside of and outside of the region? So these are types of the things that you want to focus on more in phase two. Your discrete actionable idea was a good place to start for phase one. We wanted you to start thinking about those projects, those types of things that we should be implementing. Phase 2, though, is broader than that. As Jason said, it's deeper than that. Now, if your plan also, though, has call for some sort of a budget, as many of you submitted, it doesn't necessarily have to be as detailed as to say what the line items particularly are. But you should have some semblance of an idea of what the sources and uses are. So I'll pick on our friends who won second prize. That's a bricks and mortar, that's for Phase 1. Our friends at Swift Factory proposed something that's bricks and mortar, talks about jobs creation, talks about also some programmatic things that would have to be implemented or changed. And so with that in mind, their budget would probably speak particularly to about where are their funding sources to be able to achieve their outcomes. Maybe the city has a role in that too. Maybe the feds, maybe private partners. But the fact is that they will likely have to prove to us or show to us the viability of their program by demonstrating how the money comes in and how some of the money needs to come out. We'll work more closely with teams or successful respondents at the end of Phase 2 to discuss things like implementation. But at least for now, what you really want to do is take your actionable item, get as detailed as possible how it can be implemented, perhaps also, though, more focus placed on how does your idea impact the cities and the region's economy. So the EDA sent along some tools to help us. You saw this in the email too, I'm sure, on Friday. Some basic outlines for economic development plans are on the SC2 website. The EDA also has I mentioned earlier, the CEDS. They have a guidance outline for how communities can create their CEDS. Now, this is new for many of you, and I understand that. You're being asked to think about your ideas on bigger scales and present it in a way that's probably different from how you may have done it before. And so because of that, EDA has prepared these tools to help guide you. These are really just guidelines. They may not be not all sections may be applicable to everyone, because again, we're not running a competition the way the other two cities are. Everyone who has proposed, and all 10 teams who are participating in Phase 2 have very unique ideas. So following these guidelines will help you at least when you're crafting your Phase 2. And if you have any particular concerns about how your idea may be built out, you can always reach out to our department. We'll be doing much more hand-holding and personal interactions in Phase 2 than in Phase 1. We have a much more finite universe to be able to do that. Also listed here is a list of the EDA suggested tools for economic development. I encourage you to take a look at these resources. At the end of the webinar, we'll also send along a copy of this presentation so you can have access to these links and information. Some more tips to help. These also come from the email. You should really be focused on these 4 particular elements. How does your idea? Have you done an analysis of your idea? Does it have a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? Have you considered what the strategy or the action plan based on Hartford's vision, goals, and competitive advantages are? This might be informed by some of the things that the City of Hartford is already working on. Maybe some things that CRDA is working on. But pay attention to these particular 4 elements. This is, again, straight from the horse's mouth, verbatim from what the email was sent to us by our EDA PRO representative. Some additional tips to help you when you're formulating your plan in Phase 2. It should really contain some key findings, opportunities, and initiatives. You should identify the data that is particular to what your topic and idea is. And you can see there's some of those things that the EDA has recommended for you to identify as a way to help you bring your plan to fruition. Some additional tips. Now, what's true here, as I said, different strategies will have, there will be different strategies for the different ideas. Make your plan compelling and relevant to Hartford judges by speaking to the unique characteristics of the region and also what your idea is. So here we come to the Phase 2 plan requirements. There are 2 required components, one of which is the narrative and the plan, and the other is the letters of endorsement from local leaders. We mentioned all along that part of your strategy, you will have to demonstrate feasibility and sustainability as your strategy. One way to demonstrate feasibility is by getting letters of endorsement and support from civic leaders. There was one team I met with following the Phase 1, and it was clear to me that in order to demonstrate the feasibility of their plan, the city would probably have to revisit some of its zoning ordinances. And so without actually going to one of the other various bodies that oversee the city's zoning and boards of appeals, I would feel that that team would be hard-pressed to demonstrate feasibility without getting some support from those folks. It's unlikely we'll be able to change any laws or ordinances ahead of the Phase 2 deadline, but you can certainly get letters of support from folks like on P&Z, the Planning and Zoning Commission. Perhaps they would be amenable to putting it on the agenda following the deadline. So these are some things that you can do to demonstrate, as I said, feasibility, sustainability, and it will be a required part of Phase 2. The optional part is the video pitch. Now, I will tell you that some teams did a Phase 1 video pitch, and I think that those probably served very well for them. You'll recall, though, that Phase 1 we were much more limited in the type of media that we were, or the breadth of media. You're limited to 25 pages, so that video could have been helpful to add some additional information to the judge's understanding of your submission. Phase 2, we have eliminated the number, the pagination requirements. We will not put restrictions on how many pages you will be required to upload. That said, however, you should speak very clearly and concisely to the judges. You don't want to lose your judges before they've had a real chance to understand your idea. So the video may be helpful for you to actually concisely articulate what your strategy is, or perhaps even lend some additional information or understanding that perhaps wasn't communicated properly or clearly in the written submission. Here is the timeline. As I mentioned, we're obviously well past the Phase 1, heading along into Phase 2. You'll see here on this timeline a TBD, finalists presentations. Now, we built this into the timeline at the very start of the process so that teams would have an opportunity to garner some of that public support that I just talked about. What's going to be important here, though, is that we respect all of the teams' wishes and timelines. I don't want to schedule a time or a date that would preclude one of the teams from being able to participate, or several teams. So when the EDA and the TCP come to visit us on the 5th and 6th, excuse me, the 6th is when we'll have our programs, the 5th is when they fly in. So on the 6th and 7th, when we meet the teams one-on-one, what I'll be doing then is taking the pulse. What time frame would be ideal? How much lead time do teams need? So I will follow up with you as soon as possible about the finalist presentations. But that's largely designed so that you folks will have a forum and an opportunity to speak to the community and its leaders in a format that you feel most comfortable. Okay? And of course, we do have the award ceremony, which we will announce as well. We expect that will probably take place the first week in June. That will also, though, be somewhat incumbent upon the selection panelist judges for Phase 2. I do foresee, though, that we won't have any problems completing the reviews in the month that was allotted. Plans will be due on April 20th. And I believe the judges should be willing or able to complete their reviews by May 20th. So with that, Jordan, I'll ask you to unmute the presentation at this time. That does conclude the speaking part, and I will open it up to questions and answers. I just want to remind folks that I may not have answers for you today, but we will certainly research those answers and follow up with all of the teams, whether they're participating on this call or not. So with that, thank you so much, and I'll open it up to questions and answers.
Good evening, it's Mark.
Hi, Mark. I can hear Mark.
Are you thinking the presentations are going to be just to the judges, or is it a broader audience?
It will be a broader audience, partly because, as I said, you'll have to be getting letters of engagement. I don't have a determination on whether or not we'll ask the judges not to attend those early presentations. Jason, if you have any thoughts on that, I was intending to follow up with Shivas so as to not have them spill the beans too early and give the judges too early of an insight. But it will be open to the public so that members of the community will be able to understand your idea and perhaps even support your idea.
Yeah, I will have to talk more about that. I think that there's two intents here. One is that people can find a forum to secure their letters of endorsement, or at least to get a conversation started for that. And the other is to get feedback. And so as much as Hartford would like to include the selection committee or invite them, that's possible. But mostly we're talking about the letters of endorsement and getting people generally to tell you what they think so you can refine your plans.
Thank you, Jason. I just received a question. Who are the judges this round? The judges this round are on the SC2 website. They're identified as selection panelists. Our first round judges were identified as evaluation panelists. I'll work with Jason and Jordan. Perhaps we can rearrange the web. I don't recall that it was any particular order relative to their panel. I think it might have been alphabetical by name, but I'll work with our team to make sure that the selection panelists are more clearly identified. They do include folks like, obviously, Tom Deller, Sam Hamilton from HEDCO, Barry Feldman, who is our Trinity representative, but of course, those who know Barry know him as the former operations manager, COO for the city of West Hartford. He was also VP at UConn, and he's now as I said, our adjunct professor for the graduate program in public policy and law at Trinity. Also on that board is Colleen McGuire, another name that stands out to me. She is the executive director of the UConn Business School. You can see the full list on the website, sc2hartford.com. And as I said, they are identified as selection panelists.
This is Mark again. Will all of the judges be reading all of the proposals?
Yes.
We think that we're going to have to add another judge. Let me start with that. But yes, Jason, we're still kind of working out the schematic or the logistics for that. But were we talking about having the judges read all of the submissions, or were we going to have each plan still reviewed by at minimum 5?
Yeah, all of the judges in this case will be reading all of the submissions, and therefore we will not be statistically normalizing those scores. It will be a straight scoring process. The only reason that we normalize scores, and you can read the explanation on the website, is to ensure that if certain people are assigned judges who might score easy, whereas others are assigned judges who might score hard, everyone will be mathematically treated the same. In this case, all of the selection committee members will be reading all of the proposals, so we don't need to use the normalization process.
Thank you for that question, Mark.
And just for clarity on that point, they're both reading and scoring?
Yeah, they're reading, scoring, and commenting upon them. And yes, you can see who those folks are, what their credentials are on the website. And once again, I'd encourage you to look at that rubric and see exactly what they're being asked to look for in your plans.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any other questions? Okay, folks, as always, you can always reach out to me afterwards and send me a personal email. I'll be happy to answer your question. And if it's relevant, salient enough, not particular to your proposal, I'd like to share that question with the group. So please, if you have any questions at any time, it will help expand all of our collective knowledge and understanding of the program. So with that, if there are no other questions, thank you all so much for making the time today to join us on the webinar. We will be convening again next Monday, the 29th at noon, and I will make this link available to anybody, to all of the teams, so that anybody who wasn't able to participate today will still benefit from our gathering. Thank you all. Have a great day.